Have you ever attended a lecture and at the end thought, why did I need to know that information? No matter how well you know the subject, every lesson should start with a learning objective. Why? Because students need direction and motivation. If you don't explain to students why a lesson or course is useful to them, whether the information is on a test, a prerequisite for another lesson, or important for their future, students may lose interest and not take the lesson seriously. We can't assume that students want to learn about everything presented to them. They need motivation. Additionally, you need structure. How can you prepare a lesson without having an end goal? In other words, after an hour or full day of lecturing, what do you want students to be able to do with that information? Learning objectives help justify every activity and also keep you accountable. Sometimes, when we're planning, we get carried away with adding content or making the lesson fun and engaging. For example, some teachers are hands-on educators and like to have a lot of activity in the classroom. At the same time, most are well aware that too much of a good thing is not always helpful, and a game may not be the right activity for that topic. So make sure to always compare each activity with the learning objective by asking, will this activity help students achieve the learning objective? If the activity is not appropriate, then adjust it. As educators, we share the responsibility for a student's success. Because of this, it's a good idea to focus on creating measurable learning objectives as opposed to general learning objectives. We want to be able to measure a student's performance or their understanding of the topic in order to measure our overall success. Let's compare a general learning objective to a measurable learning objective. Here's our general learning objective. Today, students will learn about American history in the 1960s. That's great. But it does not explain why they need to learn about American history in the 1960s or what they will be able to do with that knowledge. It's very broad. Now, let's look at our measurable learning objective. To satisfy course requirements, students will learn about 4 historical events in American history from the 1960s. The lesson will cover the Civil Rights Movement, the first U.S. manned spaceflight, the Cuban Missile Crisis, and the Vietnam War. The lesson will be a combination of lectures, discussions, and presentations over a 3-week period. By the end of the lesson, students will be able to explain, in essay form or discussion, how these events impacted America both then and now. This is much more focused and specific. The easiest way to start developing a learning objective is to start with what you want to accomplish, how you're going to accomplish it, and then how you will measure it. There are different ways to approach this, but using the SMART learning objective formula helps you create specific and measurable learning objectives. Here's a breakdown of the SMART model. Specific. What exactly will your students learn? Be as concise and clear as possible. Measurable. How will you know if the student learned the material? What will they be able to do with it? Make sure the objective is tangible. Achievable. Will your students be able to learn this information? How will the delivery and organization of the lesson help them? Keep things at the appropriate level. Relevant. Make sure the objective is relevant to the course and that students see the value. Time-based. Determine if students will be able to learn everything within the time frame. Remember, a measurable learning objective promotes accountability and provides clear directions and incentive for students. The SMART learning objective formula helps you ensure that both your needs and the student's needs are met.